Okay, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited to have my great friend Angela Bradford with us today. Angela, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm super excited for today.
Yeah, me too. And just to give you kind of a little bit of an overview, I've been having some great conversations with some amazing, powerful women in my life, and really looking to open up the conversation that I believe is kind of, for some reason we've become uncomfortable. A lot of women, at least the ones that I'm surrounded by, outside of the business that I do, they seem to feel uncomfortable about talking about money, uncomfortable about asking questions. And so I'm really just kind of passionate about getting the word out there and sort of starting to open up the conversation. And especially with women that I really look up to, obviously like yourself, I know your story is quite amazing. So I'm really excited to share it. And I feel like you've been on a little bit of a speaking tour lately, sharing your story with so many people and our company. And, I'm grateful to have you. And really, I want to kind of highlight today sort of your before and after. So, maybe we could start just because the audience doesn't really know you, or some of them may not. But if you can just kind of share with us a little bit about your story, sort of what it was like growing up. Were you raised to talk about money? How did you feel about money? I know insurance is a big passion of your life. We're going to find out why in a bit, but just tell me, walk me through your childhood. Walk me through how you were raised to believe and think about money.
Sure, that's awesome. So my childhood, I was a few things, I guess. I was homeschooled, so I did learn about money. So a couple of things, I guess, about money that I learned that I'm grateful for was we had a business. So I learned how to balance books, how to do the pluses and minuses on books. You can tell I'm not high tech on this accounting stuff, but we learned about money in, money out, that kind of basics. So that was really helpful. But was a couple things that we did learn that were limiting, that I've learned since were limiting beliefs, was like money's the root of all evil. You can't love money. Money doesn't grow on trees. Good people don't have money. Like some of these kind of concepts were things that were subconsciously, maybe more than consciously, but discussed around the house. And some of the things that I've definitely had to work at coming into adulthood and coming into the cash flow, I guess, arena of life and work through definitely was a big part of my upbringing.
That's amazing. Yeah, you know what? You had me thinking because I have 3 kids, and the power, you said subconsciously, and I do think sometimes we don't even realize little comments that were being made. And one of the biggest sayings that I had growing up was money can't buy you happiness.
Right.
Have you ever had someone say that? It drives me crazy. And I'm like, you know what? Money in the right hands for good people can do amazing things. Amazing things. So you'd say your childhood, how did you grow up? Was it like a middle income family? Did you have more money than month, or, were times really tough?
Yeah. We had both. So for the first, probably I'm going to say 6 years of my life, I could be wrong. I was 6, but I think we were loaded. Like we had money. I just feel like we just weren't struggling with anything. And then, coming into that 6-7 year, my dad actually left for a little while. There was just some things in life, and he left for a while, and we went from having, good money, I believe, to having no money and absolutely none. And the church looked after us, and my grandparents looked after us because we just couldn't afford even food. And so we went from one side to the other. And then, thank God he came back, and my parents have been married over 51 years now. It's pretty cool, but they've got an incredible story. But we came back, and then we kind of went into, I would say, middle income. We weren't starving. We weren't living high. We were just kind of like getting by. And that was pretty much the rest of my life, was there wasn't like a lot of savings. There was no debt really either. We were kind of just in the middle of everything. So I've been through a little bit of both, where money was really good, there was no money, and then kind of in the middle ground of life was kind of my upbringing.
That's awesome. You really got to kind of experience how it could be great, how it could be maybe some challenging times. And I think that's really powerful for sure. So, you're now an adult. And I know you used to be a trucker, long haul trucker, right? How long did you do that for, Angela?
Full-time and part-time, about 14 and a half years. So a long time. And ran every state but Rhode Island and Maine from a truck. So seen a lot of country, which was pretty awesome. And it was a fun life for sure.
Wow, I did not know it was that long. That's amazing. And obviously, you've now career transitioned into, an amazing industry that we both work in the finance industry. And as I mentioned and alluded to before, I know you're super passionate about insurance. And so, tell me a little bit about your health journey and a little bit about that part of your story, because I really want to kind of highlight, the before, and had you not come into contact with someone from the industry that you trusted, going down that path, how your life would maybe look a little bit different today.
Yeah, for sure. So I remember when I started in the industry and they kind of said, hey, we need to make sure you're looked after. Number one priority is, our agents, which is true. And I remember them saying, you needed insurance. And I was like, I don't need insurance. I'm good. I have money saved. I'm okay. I'm healthy. I'm in my 30s. I grew up with, that was another thing. Insurance was kind of bad in our household. So I kind of grew up with that. I said, I don't need insurance. They said, well, it's probably a good idea to have, because if you get sick, what happens? And I'm like, yeah, probably a good idea. Okay, fine. Sign me up, because you can get insurance and get all your money back, as you know, if you don't get sick. So I was like, well, that's kind of win-win. So, all right, let's get this on me. And then, within about 2 to 3 years, I think it was about 2 years actually, my health started going downhill, and I started going through testing, and within a year, I was diagnosed with MS, multiple sclerosis, which for those that don't know is an autoimmune disease. And it really affected my life. But what was interesting about it with the insurance side was, my critical illness was the first claim I actually got to process. And my critical illness paid me $100,000, which, by the way, doesn't cure what I have. And it's not about the money, but for anyone that's suffering with a chronic illness or critical illness is listening in, they know it's expensive to be sick. And our healthcare, blessed, we're in Alberta. If you're in the States, I feel for you guys. And even in other, say, provinces, we're covered with a lot, but there's a lot that's not covered. So there's the importance of what that covers. And who knows, like, I'm just a couple of years in on my journey. So who knows where this will change down the road and where I'll need more finances, because things change. And so that was like a huge eye-opening moment, I guess, for me, as far as going down this journey, that we think that a lot of our stuff is covered, and it's not. And there's a lot of things that involve cash. Money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys food, and it buys health sometimes. So it might not buy happiness, but it buys a lot of stuff.
Well, it's going to make for a better life, which in turn creates more joy, creates more happiness. I mean, it's all intertwined. So can you give me a couple examples of what, maybe the healthcare system would not provide that you had needed with some of that cash?
For sure. So in my case, I'm on an infusion. There's a lot of different things. I'm on an infusion that's twice a year. Thankfully, I don't pay for the actual infusion, which is $17,000 a shot. So my American friends are paying for it. But $17,000 a shot twice a year. And so, but my healthcare that I had, or my benefits that I had, doesn't cover that. So I had to get an extra benefit to cover that. So that's an extra, $60 something a month. Anytime I go to the K Medical Center, which is in Edmonton, you have to pay for parking. I don't understand that, but anyway, you do. You have to pay for parking every time. I'm off work if I was trying to work a job. I mean, the infusion's about a 6-hour infusion. So you're taking at least a day off work every 6 months. Plus you have to do your blood work. Plus you have to do all the other stuff that is over and above that. And that's just for me. I know some of my friends are going through cancer treatments, and apparently there's a pill for chemo. None of that's covered. So people are remortgaging their homes to pay for this cancer treatment, whether it works or not. My cousin, second cousin, went for treatment in Europe, and it was $84,000. So a lot of this stuff isn't covered. Stem cell replacement in Mexico is $30,000. In the States is $10,000. So there's just so much out there. And when you're at a point where your health goes, really money, you'll remortgage your house. You'll do whatever it takes to try to fix your health.
You really will.
You really will. Because really that is all that matters. And at a certain degree, because so if you're going to, so that's where the money comes in. You're just so much extra. You're eating healthier, which you should eat probably healthier before. I get that, but that's kind of an awakening that you start to eat more healthy. You start to look after gym memberships, all this stuff.
Yeah. Because isn't it backwards that healthy food is way more expensive than the crappy food?
I know, it's terrible.
If you have the money, you'd find yourself going down that road. And You know, so when we talk about kind of before and after, had you not gotten the critical illness policy, had you still been a long haul trucker, you know, and you got diagnosed, what would your life look like then, do you think?
I have no idea. I mean, with COVID, of course, we're recording this at COVID, trying to truck and trying to go south and trying to deal with the health concerns and everything else, it would have been a completely different life. Kind of gives me shivers to think of what it could be at. And I mean, this year we paid out a couple claims, so I was not the only claim. And so, you know, just being able to, and I know like we paid off debt with one of the other claims, they put a roof on their house, so it's so significant what to do with this money to help people and make sure that if something happens, that people aren't doing GoFundMe pages, which are great, but not relying on the goodness of others, basically for our life. That's a scary.
It's so true. It's so true. It is amazing what a little bit of money can do. And kind of, I like the idea of taking it into our own hands and making sure that we're covered. And I look at my brother who crossed over that line of insurability. You know, he has Crohn's disease. And I think you're such a great example of kind of getting that taken care of early. And what I love the most, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, is that some people can pay off their debt. Some people can go towards, you know, future medication. Some people can, it's really up to you. And what I like about that is it's in our control and it creates options.
Yeah.
Right. So like, what would you say to the person, and I kind of know the answer, but I want to hear it from you. Like, what would you say to the person you're sitting with that says to you, you know what? Like the old Angela, you know what? I don't need insurance. I'm never going to get sick. I'm going to die late in life and I'm going to have all my debt paid off. What do you say to people like that?
I'm like, that would be super awesome. And you know what? For probably 50% of the population, it might be that way. But are you the 50%? Are you taking that kind of chance? And if something happens, are you going to be okay? When I was 30 and I do this, I'll put my cane on the desk. You know, when I was 36, I didn't think that I'd be walking with a cane. I was a horse trainer. I built houses. I drove truck. I did everything active. It's amazing how fast your life can change. And for people that say that, you know what, I can't afford it, you can't afford not to have it. The people that can't afford to have something can't afford to have nothing. Definitely. And I say that to my clients all the time. I'm like, if money's tight, let's find you something, because in those cases, especially if something happens, you're going to be in really hard times. Yeah. So if you can't afford to get the insurance and to get the protection, then you definitely can't afford to not get it. And if you can afford it, then why wouldn't you have it so that you can protect your wealth? So you're not trying to get better and watching your investments go down while you're trying to lay there on the hospital bed and get better, and think how that would feel. If you're laying there, you're like, oh my gosh, there goes my retirement savings. Like, right. How is that going to feel? So that's what protection is for, is to protect us so that we don't spend what we've already saved. And if you don't have anything saved, well, it's to protect you from going in a bunch of debt, which is really significant.
Yeah, if you have nothing saved, it's even more reason to have it. And I love when people start to talk about being self-insured and all that, I say exactly what you just said. Just protect yourself now, continue to save, grow up that asset, and then, right? Like, it's got to kind of all work. So how would you kind of, just to kind of wrap it up, I find your story to be so powerful, because I think so many people are in the situation, not necessarily health-wise, but in a situation where they either have had a little bit of help but aren't taking the help, or for most people, would you agree that most people don't get the help because there's just not enough people out there that are reaching out to them, that are trying to, you know, hey, let me teach you about what are the options out there, you know? So where would you tell someone outside of us, obviously, but just someone that's watching this, that's kind of just, you know, what do I do? What's my next step? Where do I go? What would you tell them?
Definitely reach out. I mean, reach out to a broker, reach out to someone that has access to, that's one of the things I love about what we do, is that has access to a bunch of different companies. So here's what's cool about that is, I've got diagnosed with MS and I had a claim. Now I have insurance though if I get cancer or heart attack. So most companies now wouldn't insure me, but I'm not uninsurable. I'm insurable with our companies. So reach out to a broker because then they can shop around, find you the best option, and put an amazing plan in place for you. And there's so many out there there's so few and there's so many at the same time. But like, try to find someone that you trust that will do the best option for you. And if you've been putting it off by somebody, then talk to that somebody and get something in place, because it's so important to make sure you and your family are covered. And don't wait. You know, people always say, man, I'll be okay, I'll do it next month, or I'll do it next year, or I'll do it. Man, it can change so fast. And you have no idea. That's why it's unpredictable. So if you're healthy right now, get it while you're healthy. And then you don't have to worry about the future. And it feels so good just to make sure your family and everyone around you is protected 100%.
It does feel good. You know, you just wake up with such comfort, you know, knowing that if anything were to happen, you know, and how many people do we know that have had things, whether it be health or tragic, you know, circumstances happen, just making sure that we take that responsibility. So, hey, Angela, thank you so much for sharing your story. I think this is super impactful for so many people, especially women, which is really why I said in the beginning, I'm opening up conversation. You know, I recently did a study, or a poll. And I asked people, you know, do you find more the husband handles the finances or the woman, if they're in a relationship, you know, husband and man, and like, I forget the percentage, it was something like 60% or something like that was the men handled it. So the more we can talk about it, the more we can kind of bring awareness. I think us women, we can kind of lean in, we can step in and say, hey, do I have insurance? Hey, I need to get something in place, and making sure that we're kind of taking that responsibility for our family. So thank you so much for being here today, guys. Make sure to like and share and subscribe. I'm supposed to say that, so go do that. And yeah, appreciate you, Angela, and we'll see you next time.